Hello, everyone, and welcome for this induction to Phi Alpha Theta. I'm David Contasta. I'm professor of history and chair of the history department here, and this is Professor Anis Four, who's our most recent addition to the history department. We're delighted to have her, and I know the students are as well. Since you as students of human thought and action have expressed a desire to continue upon the high paths of history, and since your predecessors have found you worthy to share such privileges, it is with pleasure that we initiate you into the Alpha Eta Psi chapter of Phi Alpha Theta, a society dedicated to the service of history. You know that the Greeks deemed Clio worthy of the highest place among the muses. You also know of the immeasurability of time and the imperfection of human understanding. Before the beginning of history, time stretched back through unknown eons. The future lies ahead equally in unknown vistas. With this immense span of eternity, historic time is only a very brief period. The study of the past may be divided into 6 ages. Of these, 4 have disappeared, having left everlasting impressions on civilization. The 5th age is the present, while the last, the future, lies ahead to be known and judged by generations yet unborn.
I am the spokesperson for the prehistoric age. In the prehistoric age, societies were formed as people learned to make fire, improve their tools and weapons, domesticate animals, raise cereals, weave coarse cloth, construct crude permanent shelters, create art, and develop religious expressions. As their numbers increased, they evolved larger and more complex societies with institutions of government. With the introduction of agriculture and the commencement of trade, people created a system of enduring human relationships. When at last they learned to record their deeds and desires in writing, they passed from the prehistoric to the ancient age.
I am the spokesperson for the ancient age. In the ancient age, early societies in China, India, and the Middle East, the Mediterranean world, Africa, and the American-built cities and created powerful states and empires were sustained by increased control of the natural environment and regimentation of society. With steadily increasing religious, political, and economic specialization, social hierarchies appeared. Through reason and speculation, the cultural realms of religion, ethics, philosophy, and science developed. In the teachings of the philosophers and prophets, individuals learned to understand and transcend the inequalities of one, and to perceive the order preventing the universe. 2. In the later centuries of the ancient age, the great empires of Afro-Eurasian world experienced political, social, and economic disintegration and face of numerous challenges. With the collapse of Han Dynasty in China, the decline of Roman Empire, and the fall of India's Kufa Empire, the ancient Afro-Eurasian world passed away. The Americans, however, were unaffected by these changes.
I am the spokesperson for the medieval age. The medieval age began when folk migrations challenged the classical civilizations of Europe and Asia. As the political powers of the great empires declined, new forces emerged. The great religions of Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Confucianism spread beyond the lands of their birth to bring the majority of the inhabitants of the earth into the understanding of the essentially ethical nature of human life. In China, Japan, and Southeast Asia, India, Africa, the Americas, and the Near and Middle East, rich civilizations arose and achieved stability. Western Europe, however, remained for several centuries a land of instability and conflict. Ideals constantly outstripped practice. The dream of united Christendom and civilized behavior sharply contrasted the reality of numerous intermediate states and the brutalities of feudal warfare. Displays of great power and wealth stood beside the general and harsh poverty of the masses. Yet, the germ of more stable, refined, and prosperous civilization in Europe was alive in the abstract pondering of scholars, in the general technological and mechanical orientations of Western society, and in the appearance of new expressions of human endeavor. Universities, capitalism, representative assemblies, and the constitutional government. A new dynamism was evident, which heralded all the coming of the early modern age.
I am the spokesperson for the early modern age. During the 400 years of this age, national states arose in Europe, America, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, and society divided into an increasing number of social classes. Capitalism, emerging from its primitive beginnings, became a dominant feature of Western civilization. Contact was established between isolated continents of the world, and in successive waves of imperialism, Europeans carried both the virtues and vices of their civilization to all corners of the globe. In the wake of these enlarged activities came revolutions in ideas, institutions, and practices. No aspect of life, religion, family structure, economic activity, political systems, or culture was left untouched. Great progress was made in material benefits, but often this was at the expense of the significant dislocation of human lives, the suppression of peoples, the ravaging of natural environments, cultural tensions and resentments between peoples, and the intensification of ideological conflicts. Further, concentration on material well-being led to a growing secularization of society. All of these developments would pose serious challenges for the world during the contemporary age.
I am the spokesperson for the contemporary age. At the beginning of the contemporary age, it seemed that the ideals of democracy would soon be achieved throughout the world, and that the horrors of war, which had haunted humanity since the beginning of recorded time, would soon be ended forever by an era of perpetual peace and international cooperation. These hopes were dashed by 2 world wars and numerous smaller conflicts, which resulted in untold misery and serious economic and social dislocations. The development of the Cold War, the end of colonialism, and the emergence of the Third World brought an ever-increasing complexity of internal and international relations. All of this tended to promote pessimism and widespread unrest. Nevertheless, the contemporary age has been rich in spiritual values and has had a great thirst for reform and civil rights. The Berlin Wall has been torn down, communism compromised in many places, and the Cold War brought to an abrupt end. People have practiced humanitarianism on a scale greater than anything known in any other era, and the horizons of human understanding and learning have been widened immeasurably. Globally, great problems still remain. Bitter ethnic feuds, new outbreaks of racism, continuing concerns about sexual discrimination, barbaric violations of human rights, more devastating machines of war, ecological challenges of the greatest magnitude, and the dehumanizing effects of certain modern technologies. In the midst of these tensions, the historian believes that individuals and nations may approach nearer to the ideals of harmonizing responsibility with freedom throughout the study of human experience of the past, which will afford content and wisdom for the lives of the future age.
I am the future age. I am the spokesperson for the future age. We have now passed through 5 ages of the past, and where the path leads in the future no one can predict. The pessimists may be right. Tensions among nations and power blocks backed by new material and technological advances could bring about the destruction of civilized society. The previous ages have demonstrated that nationalism, racism, and sex discrimination are long enduring problems. Therefore, they must be monitored constantly until permanent yet unknown solutions are evolved. The pessimist sees this delay into the distant future, but the optimist sees it as just over the horizon, where the human race may succeed in producing a civilization immeasurably more peaceful and finer than any the world has yet seen. An age which may be realized the highest standards of universal humanity. It is toward this great goal that the historian should constantly strive. To you, worthy students of history, this challenge is offered so that, in part through your own efforts, the future may be the world's greatest age.
Yeah. All right, so thank you. I am delighted to share some additional remarks as we celebrate our wonderful inductees to the National History Honor Society, Phi Alpha Theta. So what's the point of history in 2026? Or to paraphrase my own family when I announced that I would major in history, why would you do that? The eminent historian Peter Stern more eloquently put it when he pondered the importance of historical knowledge in our digital age. almost 25 years ago. He said, quote, "People live in the present, they plan for and worry about the future. However, history is the study of the past, so why bother with what has been?" The historian's purpose is to look back, yes, but not to assess whether our favorite period piece is historically accurate. That is an added perk, though. A historian is not a fact checker. When things happened is far less interesting to us than how and why they happened. History, as I tell my student, is not about dates. The historian aims to understand how the world we inhabit came to be in order to propose solutions for the present. Understanding that things weren't always the way they are makes change possible. Even things we take for granted, like marriage and the family, democracy, religion, work, or technology. Historians cannot predict what will happen, although we would love to have a crystal ball, but the study of history does give us the tools to craft a better future. Without knowing where we come from, we cannot know where we are going, and we cannot adjust course. History training prepares us to be versatile and meet the challenges of an ever-changing world. It fosters resilience and innovation, avoiding reinventing the wheel over and over again, to learn from what we got right and what we got wrong in the past. Historians gather and process data, but we understand, unlike computers, that the data is likely flawed. We question it and use it to reframe or disprove what everyone currently believes. History, then, is never all black or white. It teaches us to grapple with complexity and nuance and to challenge our own assumptions. These skills are recognized in the professional world. Actually, history graduates' employment rate surpasses that of their peers in more practical fields, like computer science, physics, or sociology, for example. But on a bigger scale, though, history is empathy. It allows us to understand difference, to understand how our societies have come to be the way they are, perhaps how our own lives are shaped by processes and events that are often bigger than us. History tells us that we have a voice and that this voice matters, and that we're not just talking about the past, we are talking about decisions, consequences, how people have tried to make sense of the world with the information they had at the time. History may not have all the answers, but it teaches us how to ask better questions, that there are always different perspectives, context matters. These skills are the foundations of civic engagement. The historian's work, then, is not only found on the library shelf. The work of the historian to think, to question, to listen, to share, all of what these students have been trained to do and have done in college here happens in the classroom, but will continue to happen in the office, in the courtroom, in political advisory bodies, think tanks, even at church, at your local park, or at the dinner table. So historians have perhaps never been more needed, and our students here today have risen to the challenge. And so I now have the pleasure of introducing our student speaker, Maggie Mogi, who will showcase her departmental honors research. Her talk is titled "A Model of Control, British Colonial Policing from Ireland to Palestine."
Hi, I'm Maggie. So you heard the title of my presentation, but basically when we started this, what feels like 1,000 years ago now, I planned on doing a comparison of Ireland and Palestine, and that was it. And then it got to the end of last semester, and I decided to do an independent study with Professor Four, and she told me that we could work on it and expand on my project. I was excited to do this until she told me that I needed to almost change my topic entirely, and I had to rewrite the 23-page paper. But it was worth it. So my starting point was comparison of Palestine and Israel, and then I had no idea where I was gonna go from there. So we eventually narrowed it down to, did Great Britain use colonial policing in Ireland as a training ground for policing in Palestine? I came to my answer, and I found it to be yes. Obviously, that's not good enough. So I started to look at the comparisons in closer detail. So in finding articles and even primary sources for this topic, I found a lot about colonial policing in Ireland and a lot about colonial policing in Palestine, but I found very few that covered both. So it was definitely a difficult research process, but I did have a lot of help. Yeah. A few similarities that I found between both countries that are in my paper are the use of intelligence gathering, revolts from insurgent groups like the IRA and the Arab Higher Committee, and a group called the Black and Tans. And for time's sake, I'm going to talk about just the Black and Tans. So in England, they started in England, and they were a British paramilitary force that got its name from khakis that were army trousers and black and dark green RIC shirts, which is the police force at the time. And they were composed of majority World War I vets who were looking for work after the war. Obviously, because they were in World War I, they obviously had a lot of mental health issues, what we would know as PTSD now, and drinking problems. So they were sent to Ireland to deal with attacks that were happening to British forces, and they gained a reputation of extreme violence. They burned and looted cities, physically and sexually assaulted people, and they were known for revenge attacks. So, I'm going to talk about Bloody Sunday, which an IRA group called the Squad carried out assassinations of British intelligence officers. In retaliation, the Black and Tans, along with other auxiliary groups, retaliated at Croke Park. Croke Park was a soccer field, and they were having a match that day. And the Black and Tans came in, and they killed, I think it was 12 people, including women and children. There was a look into this from the British government, but they cleared all of their names. So the group was officially disbanded in 1922, but in the same year they were sent to Palestine. And they worked with the Palestinian police force that had Arabs and Jews on the police force. So at the time, England was in Palestine to manage Ottoman territories after World War I and eventually create a Jewish national home. Once again, the lines of police and military were being blurred, and there were punishments all the time for entire communities. There were curfews, house demolitions, collective fines, roadblocks, and imprisonment without trial. Palestinian insurgents one morning went to assassinate Assistant Director Commissioner Mufat. Don't know what his job necessarily was, but he was known for being very brutal to the Palestinian people. In retaliation, the Black and Tans, along with other auxiliaries, attacked the town of Jenin, and they used 9,000 pounds of explosives when blowing up 1/3 of the town and killing many. So, why should we know about this? We should know about this because it explains how colonial policing and counterinsurgency methods developed, spread, and shaped later conflicts. Great Britain got around and functioned as a connected system. It also helps explain the long-term conflict in the Middle East. The IDF today still uses tactics that were put in place by Great Britain, and it even shapes some of the policing and governmental policies we see today. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. All right. As new members, you will be expected to live up to the ideals of Phi Alpha Theta, keeping in mind the three important forces contained in the words philia, anthropos, and theos: love, humanity, God. Among the invaluable lessons that may be learned from the study of history and the ideals of this society are, first, the spirit of respect, which inculcates a sincere regard for the rights of each individual to freedom; the belief in the community of all persons, which renders abhorrent all ideas that tend to foment national hatreds, racial and sexual discrimination, and all forms of injustice; and third, the need for historians to search for truth and to accept the responsibility for making decisions in terms of their meaning for others as well as themselves. And I will now ask you a question, and I will ask for an answer. Do you accept the challenge of striving to live up to these ideals of Phi Alpha Theta? I am pleased to welcome you now as newly initiated member of Alpha Iota Psi chapter of Phi Alpha Theta. Thank you. And before we move on, I will explain the symbolism of Phi Alpha Theta. So the symbolism of the society you can see here on both screens and the banner. It's a star, a serpent, the colors red and blue, and a flower. The six-pointed star, which is composed of two triangles, is worked in black and laid on a circular frame, the whole encircled by a serpent. That which governs the universe may be thought of as having three attributes: parenthood, spirit of life, and reason, which are symbolized by one of the triangles. Ancient philosophers believed that people and the world were made of three elements: spirit, blood, and water. These are represented by the second triangle of the star. The triangle with the apex below the base, so the bottom triangle, symbolizes the guiding principles of the universe. The Greek letter pi signifies progonos for parenthood. The letter psi signifies psyche for spirit of life. And the letter lambda signifies logos for reason. The triangle with the apex above the base symbolizes the earthly and human. The letter alpha signifies heme for blood. The letter upsilon signifies hydra for water. And the letter psi signifies psyche for spirit of life. The union of these two triangles forming the six-pointed star, the ancient Assyrian sign of divinity, symbolizes the intimate relation of the infinite and the human. By some ancient peoples, the serpent was regarded as a symbol of eternity, good fortune, and plenty. In our symbolism, it signifies happiness, fruitfulness, and eternity. Superimposed on the black within the two triangles are the three letters Phi, Alpha, Theta, Philia, and proposed Theos, love, humanity, and God. Finally, the colors of our society also denote the relation between the human and the infinite. The red symbolizes the blood, which is essential to human life, while the blue symbolizes the sky, which to many ancient peoples signified the divine. So congratulations to all of you, our new members, and we'll call them up individually, yeah, to hand you your honors cord and certificate.